Today I'm in the mood for some Scotch broth. Now, there's no really hard fast and rules about Scotch broth. The only thing I'm going to say is it's got grains in it, like Pearl Barley. It's got cabbage in it. And when I say cabbage, you can transfer kale, cabbage. I like mine with Brussel sprouts, so I'm going to use mine with Brussel sprouts. And it starts off with the basic stock mix of onions, carrots and celery. Put in half a kilo of diced neck. I like mine with neck. And you've got a very tasty stew. And it's very filling because the grain, the Pearl Barley we're using, will actually give a creamy effect to the stew we're going to make. Now I'm using mine with 2 pints of homemade lamb stock that I had to hand. So I'm just going to chop the vegetables up when we start frying. Just to go through my ingredients, I have 1 leek, which I've cut the green parts off. I only want to use the white. I've got 4 carrots. They were small ones. You can use 2 big ones or 3 big ones if you wish. Here I've got 2 sticks of celery, and then I've got 2 onions behind that. Now I'm going to put them in a heavy base saucepan and lightly fry the vegetables off before I add my meat. So the pan's heated up. Now it's just time to add in the onions and the celery. Carrots and my leek. And we just want to move this about, start getting a bit of colour on it, but we don't want to colour it too much. Take your Brussels sprouts, cut the bottom off and just peel the outer darker green leaves off, because they're the ones that have been hit by frost. You want to take it down to a nice green colour, a nice shiny light green colour like that, as opposed to the darker green on the outside. And then we're going to chop these in half, ready to go into the Scotch broth. Now what we're going to do with these is just chop them in half directly where the root is. So just turn it upside down, straight through the root, upside down, straight through the root, and do that till you finish with all your Brussels sprouts. Now this is our neck fillet, and there's 2 of these on either side of the neck, along the backbone into the neck to hold to support the head up. So all I'm doing is just cutting through this fairly decent sized chunks. I'll cut that in half that way. Cut it down into fairly decent chunks. You don't want it to sort of disintegrate, but you want it to have some decent chunks when you do it. So that's half a kilo of meat there, and that's how I'm going to leave that. Our vegetables have softened. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put in my meat and we'll seal this. Then we'll add some stock to start the process of the stew. Now I'm cooking all my individual bits separately, one at a time, adding them into a big pot. You can actually use a slow cooker, cut all your bits and pieces up to the same sort of size, put it in a slow cooker, and put all your stock in, and then slowly cook this for about 6 to 7 hours, and everything will still turn out exactly the same as the way I'm cooking it now. I'm going for a quicker time, that's all. Slow cookers are great to use if you have lots of time to put the things in and then leave and then come back after. Now my Scotch broth has been on cooking on the hob for about 45 minutes now, so I'm going to add in about 75 grams of Pearl Barley. I'm going to give that a stir, and that will plump up and the stock will become thicker as a result of the grain going in there, barley. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to add in some potatoes, and also I'm going to add my turnip. Now I'm going to let this simmer for about 10 minutes before I come back, and then I'm going to add in my Brussels sprouts. So I've let that simmer now for about 10-15 minutes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add in my cabbage, or in my case my halved Brussels sprouts. If you don't have cabbage, you don't have Brussels sprouts, you can use kale. So avoid cabbage in here, be quite nice. Texture on the leaves, everything. Just finely chop it and then add it in at the last minute. Then let it simmer to soften. And then we're ready to serve these up. So here is my Scotch broth. The liquid is supposed to be thin because a broth is a thin soup. It's flavoured very nicely with the lamb. You can taste the lamb quite simply through the stock. Now also it's because I used lamb stock. The vegetables are now, because they've been simmering, took a little bit longer to cook, are tender and ready to eat. So what I've done, I've just bowled up a plateful, and I'm going to serve this with some crusty bread. This is a very tasty recipe. Root vegetables, potatoes, turnips, and my take on it is the Brussels sprout as opposed to the cabbage, but this is lovely. So on a cold winter's night, you actually want a bowl of this on a tray with some lovely crusty bread in front of the television. Nothing better. Hope you enjoy this and make the recipe.